Hills, Pennsylvania, August 31st, 2019. She was very calm. She described the SUV as silver. She even gave a description of the black women. There were two. She even knew the details. Quote, Paul Johnson sold his 2-year-old daughter for $10,000. I was to take her, unquote. 25-year-old Sharina Islam Nancy even said the license plates numbers were out of state. She was very certain, very sure, very specific. After dropping off the small child, she drove away, she lit a cigarette, and she spoke to her husband, who was living in Bangladesh, Rahan Udin. They have a young daughter together in India. Nancy was just a woman born in Atlantic City. She was working now and she was supporting her daughter and her husband, who's been deported and unemployed in India. She would send them money. She would never be involved in something like this. The FBI chose to keep looking for Nalani. They gave a tip number to help try to find this child. Paul Johnson had only stated it was a ride given from Lyft. Who had took his daughter? He didn't even know. It was just a Lyft ride. Another person who I believe was related to Johnson, he was witness to this as well. Months prior to the disappearance of Nalani, a PFA was issued, a protection of abuse. Nalani's mother, Gladys Durte, would say that Johnson was threatening to kill her and her daughter, that Johnson had held a gun to her head after snatching her phone. During this time, all the weapons was ordered to be out of the home, and Johnson even had supervised visitation. At the time the baby went missing, the PFA had expired. Lyft would issue a response saying that there was no female drivers by that name, Sharina Islam Nancy, who was driving a Lyft that day. The story seemed to be becoming stranger. Nancy's husband would even come to her defense, somewhat. He had spoken to Nancy all night, he said. They were video chatting and he saw the entire car. There was no children in there. Where was this adorable little girl that was lovingly nicknamed Moo? Nancy had collected a lot of traffic tickets, but was she responsible for abducting someone else's child, and why? Her husband at the time was also on the phone listening and talking to his wife when he heard the police arrive, and Nancy said that she had a gun being held to her head. Nancy insisted still she didn't know where this baby was. She hadn't taken this baby. Udin would later contact the police and say, quote, I don't know if she did it or if she didn't. One part of me believes she can, and another part is like, nothing's found. It has to be solved and you can't make conclusions, unquote. The rumors, speculations, what was true, what was false, it would turn out that Nancy and Paul Johnson, Nalani's father, they were in an intimate relationship, and on and off again for the past few months. That evening, Nancy Johnson, they were arguing. Johnson and his relative got out of Nancy's car, and Johnson was then going to retrieve his daughter that was strapped in the car seat in the back. And that's when Nancy pulled off, leaving Johnson without his child. I'm sure he assumed she was going to come back. I'm sure he called and the cell phone calls went unanswered. I'm sure he would never think that she could do anything like this. Little Nalani's body was found in the Pine Ridge Park on Bureau Township, Indiana County on September 3rd. She was still strapped in her car seat. Was she left there or did she die from exposure? Dr. Kevin Wiley hadn't gave the official cause of death, but he would say Nalani's blood flow had stopped and it wasn't going to her brain and her vital signs. The baby had scrapes on her face before she died. She had even had an unknown yellowish content in her stomach. The coroner would call it homicidal violence, and she was left in the park. I say Nalani was killed for revenge from her father's psychotic lover, plain and simple. Justice for Nalani.